Are you struggling with roadblocks as a woman in the challenging and constantly changing world of corporate America? If you feel stuck in your career, you may be holding yourself back and may not even realize it. Prepare to be enlightened by the meaningful discussions here at the No Woman Left Behind podcast. Each week, gather the insight you need to break down those walls of limiting beliefs. Unleash your full potential and unlock the leader within. Listen to raw conversations with corporate women as they share inspiring stories with the purpose of obtaining their dream career and living a truly fulfilling life. Here's your host, Rosie Zilinskas.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Have you been wondering if you need a 4-year degree in order to get a job in the corporate world? Or what are the requirements of corporations these days when it comes to hiring? Well, those are the things that we're going to be talking about today with Celina Shands. Born and raised in North Carolina, Celina approaches business like a true Southerner. Relationships first, business second. She is the founder and CEO of Full Capacity Marketing, a 20-plus-year-old national consultancy specializing in brand storytelling and strategic communications for those in the workforce, education, and entrepreneurship sectors. Celina and I are going to have a great conversation on what companies are doing to hire. Do you need a 4-year degree? Is it required now? Or are there other alternatives? So stay tuned for my conversation with Celina. You and I had a conversation previously, and one of the things that we talked about is that it is no longer necessary to have a 4-year university degree. Tell me a little bit about why you think that is.
Well, hi, Rosie. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so looking forward to having this conversation because I really think it's a big misperception out there on following a traditional path and having a 4-year degree or a master's degree. And, you know, research shows us that, and it's true, the more education you have, the more money one makes. However, there is a lot of different alternative paths to people building the right skill sets. And if you ask any employer, myself included, what's important in an employee or a good worker or anything, it's going to be the skill sets. So that's valuable. And especially in today's marketplace where the labor market is so tight, it's just very important to build the right skills. And you don't have to have a degree to do that.
Absolutely. Not to mention that kids that are coming out of college are coming out with mounds of debt too.
Yes.
Right? So I know a couple people that have just graduated either from a bachelor's or master's degree, and they have $70,000 or $80,000 in debt, which they graduate, they go to school, and they're already in the hole.
Yeah. Exactly. Forget about trying to buy a home or raise a family or start a family if that's their desire, or even starting their own company. You know, it's like you're already saddled with this ridiculous amount of debt.
Yeah, and I do know that employers are starting to shift that perception. What are employers doing differently now? Now that they know that they require a certain skill set, but maybe not necessarily with the degree. How is the workplace changing in the future with that?
Well, I think it's changing in many ways, and I think it's because employers have had to change. The pandemic has created this great experiment, right, of working from home. And now we have the great resignation where people are like, look, I had some work-life balance during that time. I don't want to go back into an office. I don't, you know, so that's why employers are focusing on this concept of their own employer brand. Why would someone want to come and work for you? Now, interestingly, I was looking at a piece of data the other day that interviewed employers, and only 49% felt their brand was good in the marketplace in terms of attracting talent. That astonishes me. And I think one thing that's going to remain the same, whether 20 years from now or today, is that people want to feel like they belong, a sense, so like creating that sense of culture and values and things like that. So I think employers are waking up to that and trying to figure it out, quite honestly. The ones that have stickiness with their employees and workers and contractors, it's because they have created that environment. And they create a sense of mission around their company, right? And everybody in that company knows their connection to that mission. So I think that those are the trends that we're seeing, and I think employers are really trying to figure it out. I got asked another question on the podcast yesterday about, employers and what they feel is really important. And of course, it's skill sets, but they were talking, well, how do I create even a hybrid model? And I don't think it has anything to do with being hybrid or in person. I think it's that communication an employer needs to build within the company that's going to help that stickiness with people saying, I belong here.
Right, absolutely. And I know that for some newer employees, even like corporations, I know that people that have had experience, so example, college graduates that are being onboarded and they don't have that physical connection because they're not in the offices, they kind of feel like they're isolated. So when you say employers need to do a better job of communicating, especially with these like individual remote employees, what have you seen that has worked, or what works better for the employers?
Right. So in my company, I just should share with you, I've had 3 companies. The one I've had currently is 21 years old, and I've had a virtual model for 21 years. Now, we're a marketing and communications company. That doesn't mean we don't have face-to-face, but it has allowed me to recruit talent from all over the world and become a part of that. And as such, we've had to find ways to communicate and build systems in place. There was one project that we worked on. It was with a consortium of community colleges in Central California. And as part of that contract award, they wanted us to groom 9 of their students. And they were all over California. This was before COVID, but they were all over California. So it wasn't, we couldn't bring them in the office, right? So it was a lot of, again, setting expectations up front, like what is a workplace environment? Well, you're getting a taste of a different one now. And I want to tell you that we still set expectations with them. We still coach them, all of that. It was just done all online. And they, in turn, came back and said, this was a really unique experience because I thought it was all about going to an office and working in an office. So setting expectations and having making sure that everyone has a voice in the staff meetings and are participating, because as leaders sometimes and as employers will come in and we think we have to know it all and put all the ideas on the table. And what I have found as a leader, that you go in and say, well, here's the project, here are my thoughts, now let's poke holes in it. And allowing people to do that with the leader, it can be really powerful because they start to open up and find their voice.
Well, I'm so impressed that you actually had your company, a virtual company, essentially, for 21 years. Now, obviously, we didn't have tools like Zoom or, but so did you just do all of your training over teleconference, or how did you do your training way back then?
Yeah, onboarding and teleconferencing, it was all by phone. We were one of the first companies that beta tested WebEx. We were so excited. We're like, yay, there's something that actually is coming out. So a lot of it was email, phone calls way back when. Now we have tools like Asana, project management tool that everybody can, tap into. Slack, which is a real-time communication. Just tools that we all use collaboratively. We'll still do team meetings. We connect at conferences, but literally I have people in every time zone, right? So it's an interesting business model, and it was really born out of my desire to not be in the office. It was interesting. I had a dream one night that I had a cat named Sheldon, and I just started laughing, Rosie, because I thought, why am I dreaming about cats? I'm a dog person, right? And the next day I found this tiny little baby kitty and his little brother next to him. I said, "Oh my gosh, this is Sheldon, the cat that I was dreaming about." So he had like special needs, a lot of challenges. And I said, "Gosh, I don't want to go back to the office. I want to stay home with Sheldon." So that was like one of my motivators for starting the company, in part, was taking care of the cat. We all have different motivators.
Oh gosh, that's awesome. And I love that name too. I love that name too, from
Oh,
the
yeah.
character and the Big Bang Theory too.
Oh,
So
yeah, right.
yeah, for sure. Now, we talked a little bit about skilled workers. Like, what are
Yes.
some of the biggest needs that you see now for skilled workers that obviously are not going to university and are now seeking employment?
Right. So if you literally look in any sector, they'll tell you across the board, look, we'll train them in the technical skills. We want soft skills. So soft skills are things like, communicating, writing, connecting with folks, that kind of thing. But we work a lot with the community college system and also adult schools. And a lot of people have misconception about adult schools, which were fantastic for someone maybe who's trying to learn English better, and then have stackable credentials where they can learn office skills and then build from that. There was a woman that was helped by one of our customers, which was an adult school, and they were helping a homeless woman who was living in a shelter. And she obtained her high school equivalency and then earned some stackable credentials. And today she's earning over $60,000 a year. And so, you look at things like that. Like my nephew is another example. He was not cut out for 4 years, but he loved computers. And so he went to the local community college. He got his credentials, a lot of different credentials and all of that. Now he has his own company where he manufactures these different machines. He writes code for this specific machine that are very in high demand. And I asked him, how much did you bill last month? He said 30,000 was his billables last month. So you think about it, I think a lot of it is not worrying so much about the skills of what employers want. I think you want to beef up your own skills, soft skills, and then lean into something that you're very interested in and find mentors in that field who can get you where you want to be. Because the traditional path for many, they can't afford it. Like you say, the debt is high. And some of the best entrepreneurs and people who are in the corporate world, found their way and built their skill set to get where they needed to be. So there are a lot of paths to where folks can go.
Well, I like that you said that you talked about local community colleges and the adult education, because I mean, we have a local community college here, Moraine Valley, and once a month we'll get a catalog. And my husband always makes fun of me because I always look through it because I love learning. And they have Office, they have Excel 1, Word 1, they, just things like that. And I also like that you said stackable credentials.
Yes.
Because if you just go and you do an 8-week course of Word, and then an 8-week course of Excel, then you have the basics of those two things. But I think there's Excel 1, 2, and 3, so you can stack them. And
absolutely, yes.
With the local community college, the education is more targeted and much more affordable than that 4-year university. And like you said, not everybody's cut out for that 4-year university.
No, just because we selected it, or you or I, whatever, it doesn't mean. And we leave a lot of people are left in this economy that are like, well, what do I do? Maybe they have multiple barriers. Maybe there's childcare issues or transportation or anything like that. So I always go back to that story of the homeless woman because it's very inspiring. And I love that inspiration because you think, okay, if she can do it, there are resources out there for people to tap into. In fact, we did a national campaign, or we're running one right now with the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and they represent 79,000 adult education providers across the nation. And it's called Move Ahead with Adult Ed. And folks can go to that website and just plug in on their zip code, and then I'm interested in doing what, and then it will lead you to their local adult school, which is very affordable. If you can't even get to community college, let's just go there. That's a great resource, and their stories are remarkable coming out of there.
I like that. And, I think like you mentioned earlier, there is this paradigm that we're trying to get out of, that a four-year university is the only way, because it's not. It's not the only way. There's plenty of people that go into entrepreneurship right from, high school, and they don't even go to college. But also, I'm thinking that we're so much more knowledgeable now in the neurodivergent learning. So these are kids or people that their brain, they may have ADHD or something, and their brain doesn't function the mainstream way of teaching, and they suffer in the traditional classroom. And so it's so refreshing to know that there's these different adult move ahead with adult ed, that these are different programs and avenues for those people that don't want to or can't afford to go to the traditional way. The bottom line is that there are ways of gaining that education, gaining that skill set. So if there's a will, there's a way, right?
Absolutely. And I think, a lot of employers now are really just looking for motivated talent and people with those good soft skills. I'm the same way in my own company, where, it's interesting. We have a very unique mix here of folks who have their PhDs and masters, all the way down to folks who have been homeless or have been on public assistance, including myself, who grew up very, in a poverty-stricken area. And I think it's really cool because we understand those folks who have those barriers, who are trying to lift themselves up. And there are a ton of ways you can get there. You don't have to be saddled with debt. If you can't afford it and you have the desire to, by all means, go and get fully educated. There's so much online now. I'm like you, Rosie. I like to, every week, take at least one webinar. And there's so much out there that you can go and just continue to learn in so many ways.
That absolutely. Now, once a skilled worker is established, in a, let's say, corporation, because our podcast is primarily geared towards women in the corporate world. Right. So what are some of the challenges that you have seen these skilled workers have faced?
Right. Well, I can speak to my own experience for sure with this. And when I was in the corporate world, even though I've had 3 companies, that they've also been interspersed with different jobs and different corporations and whatnot. And so, obviously, the glass ceiling is still there, and we're still trying to break it. And we just haven't gotten as far as we need to. And I know I was doing the same job as other male counterparts, and they were getting paid more than me. And so for me, it was really, so that's one thing I think is really very much prevalent. I don't know how you see it. There are all kinds of other things. I've experienced sexual harassment in different jobs and things of that nature, and really trying to carve out my own niche, like, who am I? So part of my journey with that and how I overcame it was really understanding my unique brand and skill sets that I offered, and let them shine. I know many people say you've really got to work on your weaknesses, right? Well, what I have found is that if you lean more into what you're really good at, you're really going to shine, and there's going to be a pathway for you. But I would say those 2, Rosie, are the big ones that I continue to hear about and see with the folks that I work with. I don't know if you've experienced or seen others.
Yeah, I think it's the same. Like, whether you're a skilled worker, with a degree or without a degree, I think the whole reason why I started my podcast is because there's that gap, that gender gap and that pay gap in the corporate world, in the business world, really, between males and females. And although we've made great strides, there's still a lot of work to do. And I think it all kind of boils down to women owning their confidence, really, like you said, kind of leaning into their strengths, highlighting those, but more than anything is having those conversations with senior leaders to let them know what your aspirations are, because that's one of the downfalls that happened to me. I was 40 years old and waiting for someone to be like, hey, Rosie, you want a promotion? It wasn't until I was like, wait, like, what am I doing? I need to go out there and talk to my manager. And then once I did that, then I started advancing in my career, but not necessarily true. Do you feel that you're spinning your wheels and advancing your career slower than you'd like? Well, I got you, because I have a free quiz to help you figure out how you may sabotage your career advancement. Our free quiz is designed to help you identify the common pitfalls preventing you from reaching your career goals. The quiz is 100% free and it only takes 3 minutes to complete. Take the quiz now to start taking control of your career today. The link is on the episode website. And now let's head back to today's conversation.
So true. And I think, finding within your workspace who can be mentors and you can share things with and strategize. The other thing I see, and I actually work with my own customers on this, even though it's not part of what we do. But for example, I'll be in a meeting with my customers in the boardroom, and I'll notice that my particular customer who hired us, all of a sudden she may shut down, right, in a meeting so I may have a conversation just to say, hey, woman to woman, may I just share something that I noticed today? And is it okay if I share this? And get her permission and just sort of talk about why. Did I perceive that correctly? Was she shutting down, and why? And then that, just asking that, opens up a pathway to have a conversation. And like, for example, in that situation, she felt a little bit bullied, and I could see that, happening in there. So we had a great conversation about that. And so I think just having hard conversations too is a way to maneuver through that corporate world.
And I love the fact that you said, hey, I noticed something. Is it okay if I share this with you? Because you're not just coming out and saying, hey, I noticed that you shut down. What the hell happened?
Right.
Instead, you kind of ask for permission to share. And I think that's really valuable for any manager that's out there. I also had another guest previously that she would, when she was a manager, she would say, hey, I've noticed some changes in your performance lately. Is it okay if I share them with you? And that kind of made it less defensive, less combative of a conversation. Right. And if the employee said, no, I don't want to know, then she'd be like, okay, I won't tell you. But at least she put it out there that she was saying, I have some feedback. Let me know if you want it or not. kind of
Exactly. And I also think too, one way to maneuver through this, you just brought up for me, I was working in an ad agency, and I always think setting expectations and hard numbers are really important, right? Because I like that. I know that boundary. I want to exceed it or what have you if I'm in a job. So I remember I took this job. I was the VP of marketing, and a gentleman that owned the company, it was a small firm, and he says to me, okay, I'm going to give you 2 choices. I'm going to give you a lower salary and higher range for compensation, for bonuses or whatnot, or you can have this at B salary. And I said, I'm going to do the lower salary and the bonus structure. Well, I don't know, like 3 months in, I was just killing it on every goal. And so he brings me into his office to talk about not leadership. And he says, I want you to know that this month you made more than me. And my response to him was, well, I suggest you get busy. That was my response. He looked at me, and I started laughing, and I said, hey, you set the structure and I took the risk, and so I get the reward, And so I think now, fortunately, I'm Southern, so I can have kind of a fun way about me sometimes. Sure. And so I said it, but I really did mean it, even though I laughed. So I think sometimes having those conversations and being able to manage up is just as important.
Right. And you said something there that you were willing to take that risk for that reward. Yes. I mean, that balance is very personal from person to person, right? And so like, for example, I'm more risk averse, where my husband is all like he's
Right.
totally into risk.
Yes.
So it's very different. And so I probably would have taken the other one, because at the time I would have been like, well, I need to make sure that I know exactly how much I'm going to make and stuff.
Right.
Now things have shifted a little bit for me. So I probably would take that risk for reward, but that comes with time and experience and
It
that
does.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. It does. Everybody's in different places, right?
absolutely. So I know that you have several companies, and you obviously have all of your global awards for customer service behind you. So tell me a little bit about your story now, because you're very accomplished. You're an athlete. You went to school for basketball with a basketball scholarship, and like you said, you didn't grow up very wealthy. So how did you get to be an owner, a CEO of your companies, and then win all of these awards?
Well, thank you for that. You never get anywhere by yourself, right? You've got to have mentors and support. So I would say, the first mentor in my life, and still to this day, is my sister. She's 7 years older than me, and she raised me in a very tumultuous alcoholic family, where we did not have our needs met. And she actually got not a learner's permit, a worker's permit at age 15, and made money so we could have food and necessities. But she led by example, and she always told me, she goes, whatever you can dream, you need to go and do it, and not only her words, but like, she started her own company. So I had that role model early on, even though all this craziness was going all around us, right? And so she saw fit to, she says, I'm going to get you into this small private school. It was a little country school. And went there and started playing every sport, because sports then got me out of the house, right? So I played everything imaginable. And then that led to a basketball scholarship where I was able to study business and marketing. And so there was a lot of twists and turns in the story, but business one, actually, I moved from North Carolina to California because a hurricane hit North Carolina, and I was just tired of hurricanes. Anybody that lives in the South knows, hurricane season is coming through. So I moved out to California, which was a trip unto itself, but just started working on my master's degree in sports medicine, because I had that passion as an athlete. And I thought, well, I could help doctors really understand how to do sports medicine as part of their practice as a profit center. So that was kind of company number one. And then I got tired of, the big city in San Francisco, and moved to San Diego. What I lacked in skills was really working with the news media. So I took a job with the county of San Diego and sort of ran their media and marketing division. That then led me to a workforce development. I had knew nothing what workforce development was, but a gentleman had seen one of my business plans that I had written for foster care youth for fundraising. He goes, "Oh, I really want you to come and work for us." And once I started learning that, wow, really workforce development is all about helping people on their educational pathway to find work that they love. I thought, this is such a powerful industry, and I really want to be a part of it. So I worked there for 4 years, really understanding public sector models and how they work with the private sector. And that's when I launched this company, Full Capacity Marketing, which I've had again for 21 years. And we're like a traditional marketing consultancy, but again, we help those organizations that focus on workforce education, and most recently entrepreneurship, because it's such a passion of mine. So that's the journey. But along the way, what made a difference is I had help every step of the way, because I didn't really have a family other than my sister. So my teammates became my family. My best friend and her, family became my family. My teachers in school. And I think what people need to know is that most people out there want to help other folks. And if you show the desire that you really want to move ahead in your career pathway, you're going to find the help. There will be some mentor there that will help you.
Absolutely. Holy cow, what an inspiring story for your sister at 15. So that means you were
Yes.
8 years old at the time, and she went to get a worker's permit to support you.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, that just warms my heart that she knew enough that she needed to take care of you, and
Yes.
she became your role model. And what kind of work does she do? What kind of company did she establish?
But she started her own mortgage company, mortgage loans and things of that nature. And now she's, VP. She's been VP in banks and in the whole financial industry. And she's looking now to go back to consulting because she wants to slow down a little bit. And so we're looking at doing that. She wants to teach and all of that. So it's wonderful to see. Yeah, she's called Sissy Shiro in my contacts, and will always be that for me.
Oh gosh, I love that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I wouldn't be here today without her, really.
Yeah, I agree. I have two older sisters, and my parents, and both my parents were very supportive, but it was my sisters that I always turned to and asked for advice and that kind of thing. We moved from Mexico City to the United States, and so my parents didn't know anything about high school, college, or anything. So it was like my sisters and myself that tried to figure it out so we can kind of help each other, throughout. But oh my
Right.
goodness.
Well, that's why
Well,
we need to help each other as sisters in the corporate world. That's how I look,
absolutely.
and maybe I look at it that way because I never really had a family, a biological one other than, my sister. And so I look at other women who are in the workplace as my sisters. And I think to have that viewpoint, we really have to lift each other up. We have to have each other's backs because when one of us wins, the other one wins.
I
And,
love
and
that. Yeah.
just, yeah, it's just the way it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Celina, this has been such a great conversation. And I wonder if maybe you can share with us like two actionable tips that women in the corporate world could use to continue to do well in their careers.
Sure. Yeah, I thought about this. I knew you were going to ask me this. I thought, okay, what's applicable across the board, no matter where, if you're just starting out or you're really up there in the corporate ladder. And one of the things is I think you have to clean house periodically. And what I mean by that is letting go of what I call the energy suckers. The energy suckers are the people, the naysayers, who cannot get behind any new ideas and innovations. And so, it's really good business practice to shoot holes in any business concept, and you want to, practice that and give constructive feedback and receive it. Those folks that it's more like negative projection coming from someone. So I think advice number one is find the people who can support your dreams and then let go of the rest without resentment or fear. So that would be advice number one. And I don't know about you, Rosie, but I feel like business is personal. People always say business isn't personal. Well, it is personal because it's a lot of what you do every single day. And so those people who you surround yourself with or have the ability to do, I think they've got to support you, right? Your dreams. So that's one. The second one would be really take setbacks as positive. Throughout my journey, throughout this year, or throughout the years I've been working, what's come to me is that having, strong faith that the universe has my back is really an important concept. And what I mean by that is whatever's meant for you is not going to pass you by. So let's say a promotion came up that you're really gunning for and someone else got it. You know what? It wasn't meant for you. So you can take that then and I'll give an example. When we lost a contract, I put like 350 hours on this proposal. It took us like 2 months. It was a huge contract. And we weren't awarded the contract. And I thought, we were perfect for this. But again, I thought, you know what, it's probably a blessing. There's a message in there. I still went back to the folks. So I was very gracious. And I said, hey, may I have a moment of your time? I'm so happy, first of all, that you found a contractor that you can work with. And we're always looking to improve. What about our proposal didn't kind of stick with you? I'd really love to know. You can do the same thing in the corporate world. You're passed over for a promotion. Go into the folks and say, hey, I really thought this was my pathway. I'm really, glad that you found the candidate that you feel is best. I thought it was me, but I'd love to really get your input on that, because you'll be amazed at the dialogue that will take place. We've had people where we've lost contract just because of that conversation. They've looped back around and we got the contract again. It was like a year later, but it's building relationships, right? So look at it as just an opportunity to say, okay, it didn't turn out like I thought, but the universe has something better for me. Now, what can I learn from it and move on?
Oh my gosh. I think those are fantastic tips because, and by the way, they're the first time that I have heard the clean house periodically, because you're absolutely right. Sometimes we have those people that just are like negative energy or they're
Yeah,
energy suckers. And it's just like,
right.
oh my gosh, every time you get an email from the person or whatever, you're just like, oh, this is going to be bad. So cleaning house is one. And then the universe has your back. There's an author, her name is Gabrielle Bernstein, and she has a book just, called The Universe Has Your Back. And you're
Beautiful.
absolutely right. I wholeheartedly believe that things happen for a reason. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And if you work towards getting that promotion, you don't get it, it's for a particular reason. It wasn't the right time or whatever. But my recommendation, kind of like you said, keep going, have those
Yes.
conversations so that you can get that feedback. Can you let me know what I could have done better? And that's where your learning comes in, and you continue to hone your skills with that. So great tips.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it may be that the reason you get in that meeting is very political and it does not make sense to you. And that happens a lot of times in the corporate world. Maybe this person that knew somebody that you didn't know, or what have you. You know what? That is life. That is life. It is part of the game, but you don't give up on yourself and your dreams. That's what's important. Even if it's political or it doesn't make sense, take what you can to learn and leave the rest and say, okay, it's going to take me to the next path. Because what I found, if I'm grateful in those situations and just really trust that the next step is on the way, the next step is definitely on the way.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that. Absolutely. All right, Celina. Well, we've had such a great conversation just about education and things that you can do, but I want to leave you any final thoughts on anything that you can leave our listeners with.
Oh, well, I would just say, we've said so much of it. Keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. For anybody out there who is in the corporate world and they find they really want to become an entrepreneur, I would love for them to connect with us. We've got a lot of learning series. We just launched it. It's called the Brand Amplifier for Entrepreneurs. So if you feel like you've had enough of corporate, or maybe you feel like, you know what? I've got great skills. Why am I not starting my own company? I would love for them to connect in with us. And we've got a lot of blogs and resources, thought leadership articles.
Celina has such great insight on how the corporate world, the entrepreneurship world, is changing when it comes to hiring individuals. No longer is it required that everybody has to have a degree. There are corporations that are evolving, and they are now more focused on hiring people with the right skills versus the fact that they have to have a 4-year degree. We all know that just because you hire somebody with a degree does not necessarily mean that it's going to be a right fit for your business, for your corporation, for your purpose. Celina leaves us with 2 great tips. The first one is clean house periodically. We all know that when you have employees that have that negative attitude, they are just energy drainers, and occasionally you get an email from them and you're just like, oh my gosh, I cannot read one more negative email. So again, clean house periodically. Tip number 2, she says, take setbacks as positive. Know and have faith that the universe has your back, that whatever you're trying to do, whether it's get that promotion or get that raise, if it doesn't happen, it's for a reason. It wasn't meant to be, but that doesn't mean that you stop trying. That means that you keep going. If you didn't get a promotion or if you didn't get a job, maybe try to talk to your manager, talk to the hiring manager, talk to the recruiter, and see if you can get some insight on, I'm so glad that you got, a right candidate. Could you tell me what could I have done better? We're always looking for ways to improve ourselves. And if you don't ask the questions, then you're not going to know why you didn't accomplish what you were trying to accomplish. Great conversation with Celina. I myself am very glad that people, or I should say corporations, are seeing value in alternative education and not just the standard traditional 4-year degrees, because there's plenty of people that a 4-year university is just not for them, and that's okay. There's definitely other alternatives. And again, Celina mentioned Move Ahead with adulted.org. So great conversation. I hope that you got something out of it. If you are contemplating getting a job in the corporate world or even becoming an entrepreneur, rest assured that you can be successful even without a 4-year university degree. So with that, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Let these stories of self-encouragement and professional development serve as a guide in navigating through corporate America in the most practical and fulfilling way possible. Do not forget to subscribe to the show at nowomanleftbehind.com for more content like this. Leave a rating and share it with your friends, because we want to make sure that no woman is left behind. Until I see you next time, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.